And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Thursday evening. We have trades in Major League Baseball. One getting announced just a few minutes ago. The Texas Rangers have dealt starting pitcher, relief pitcher, long reliever, whatever you want to classify him as, Dane Dunning to the Atlanta Braves to kind of free up some roster flexibility, with John Gray looking like he'll be coming off the 60-day IL next week, and Rowdy Tellez needing to be called up by tomorrow for the game on Friday. So the Rangers get some financial flexibility here at the deadline. In return, they get Jose Ruiz, not expected to be any major factor here for the Rangers. I imagine they pass him through waivers again, or he goes through waivers once again. if he's even needed to do that. He has an ERA of, I believe, around 8 or 13, something really crazy high. He's not a long-term piece for the Rangers. The Rangers also did get cash considerations out of this. So when you're looking at luxury tax calculations, competitive balance tax, all those kinds of things, the Rangers right now are trying to stay beneath that for the year. And moving on from Dane Dunning's money was something they tried to do earlier this year at different points. We saw them pass them through waivers before the season began. We saw them cut his number when he was non-tendered by the Rangers, or at least agreeing to a smaller deal than what the tender was expected to be, and ultimately decided to stay with the Rangers. His spot on the roster was always tenuous here. I think he was kind of a option for them if they needed some starting pitching, if they really had a rush of injuries. But he goes to the Atlanta Braves, where he's immediately going to go onto that major league roster. He's going to get every opportunity right now to probably take the ball in that starting rotation. He's already somewhat stretched out from being a long reliever in the Rangers system. And he's going to get another lease on life in baseball here. Really been a big fan of Dane Dunning, dating all the way back, and I mean all the way back to when he was included in the trade for Adam Eaton from the Chicago White Sox. That brought him to Chicago from the Washington Nationals. Nationals traded him in the Lance Lynn deal to Texas, and then he had a real chance to become a big member of that starting rotation. Ultimately, it sounds like his stuff wasn't exactly what they were hoping it would be, but he was still a productive member of that rotation for at least 2 or 3 years here. And it's sad to see him go, but they needed the roster spot. They needed the money to be able to get some other moves done here at the deadline. It does sound like the Rangers will be looking primarily for bullpen help, and if they find a bat that fits over there at third base or at the DH spot, so be it. But primarily, they will be targeting some bullpen help as well. A few other rumors that came out in just the last 20 to 30 minutes. I literally go and get ready for my live, and all of a sudden, while I'm getting ready to go in the shower and then get to our live and do this with you guys, I get 3 notifications. One about the Rangers trading away Dane Dunning. The second one is about Yandy Diaz being connected to the Boston Red Sox. Now, an in-division trade isn't necessarily as taboo as it once was. We do see in-division trades quite frequently compared to the olden days. But the trade there would be very peculiar. The Red Sox have needed a first baseman for a very long time now this season, especially after their own guy went down. And Yandy Diaz is going to be under contract, I believe, for this year and next. We'll check into that here in just a minute. But that'd be a very interesting move. Rays don't necessarily strike me as a buyer at this year's deadline. They strike me as a team that's trying to be opportunistic like they usually are. Trade some controllable piece, or trade some close to expiring deals or expiring deals at the end of this year for long-term assets. And I think Boston, is where everybody would love to make a trade right now because they have so many good young prospects up and coming there. And we'll see what ultimately happens for them. For the Red Sox, they're looking for some controllable pieces. Yandy Diaz doesn't exactly bring the longest control. He is a little bit of an older player. He's only got 1 more year, I believe, left on his deal. But he does give them stability at first base. And that's really their only hole on the position side of things as we head towards the trade deadline. The last notification came about the New York Yankees and their pursuit of Mitch Keller. We thought that Mitch Keller rumors were a little bit premature when we were talking about them in the offseason. We were proven correct. And they still seemed somewhat premature a couple of months ago when the Red Sox were kicking the tires on him. And it just still seemed a little bit premature. It's not out of the realm of possibility with the moves that Pittsburgh has made in the draft now that they view Mitch Keller as an extravagance they can try to move on from. If they move on from Mitch Keller, that tells me Paul Skeens ain't moving anyway. It's unlikely he gets traded in a mega deal like we were, trying to find a great deal out there for him yesterday. There's not really a team besides the Dodgers who could put a representative trade on the table that would even make sense, for the Pittsburgh Pirates to even consider trading him, which leads you to believe there ain't going to be a trade yet. He's probably going to be a member of the Pirates for at least 2 more years. In which case, if they want to bring in some offensive talent, Mitch Keller is their one big piece that they could use to get that big talent in there. David Bednar is expected to be available at this deadline, but he ain't bringing a king's ransom in return for his services. Keller certainly would. But welcome in, Heel, Sarah, Anthony, Ethan. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Got about 22 of you guys with us already. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with us. We'll get into some trade talk as well. But those are kind of the 3 things that just came up in the last 30 minutes. We posted a couple of videos today out there. We'll see what happens here at the deadline. I think there's going to be a lot more buyers than sellers, which tells you the prices are going to be extremely high. There's not a lot of talent in this year's trade deadline group anyway, but there's always going to be a surprise or two. And, Mitch Keller becoming a more talked about name. We're wondering what rumors would be coming out right after the All-Star break, and we really are starting to get them now. But if Mitch Keller does get moved by the trade deadline, I would consider that not a massive surprise, but something that we weren't necessarily expecting. Something that's out of the box. And I'm very curious to see what direction Pittsburgh decides to go here. To me, if they could get the deal that we're talking about from the Dodgers as far as, all the future pieces, absolutely, I think that would still be the best way for them to go because they're not winning anytime soon. That being said, they ain't getting that offer on the table. So keep Paul Skeens, obvious. Part two of that is what do you do with Mitch Keller if you're keeping Paul Skeens for a couple years? Do you keep this rotation intact and just say, hey, the heck with it, we'll try to outpitch everybody and we'll score, 1-2 runs a game and try to win 2-1, 1-0, and hope we get enough wins to get into the wild card. And then once you get into the wild card, you throw out Paul Skeens game 1, you think that's a victory. You throw out there Mitch Keller game 2, you hope that one's a victory. And then you get to game 3, hopefully you survive it, get to game 4, and maybe Paul Skeens is back on the mound again on short rest and maybe wins you the series. That's kind of the plan of attack if you keep both of the guys. That tells me if they're keeping Paul Skeens, in all likelihood for another couple of years, Keller's probably the odd man out in the long run. I'm just surprised they're considering it as frequently that it's been rumored out there, as much as it's being talked about right now, that they're considering it here at the deadline, then waiting until the offseason when I think more teams would be interested in a player of his caliber. But, controllable pitcher, those guys are always going to get a bevy of, prospects in return anyway. So maybe they think the price difference between now and the offseason isn't that much difference. Maybe they believe another postseason run with Keller would maybe increase the price. We'll have to see what ultimately happens here with Pittsburgh, but that's one name I'm keeping an eye on as well. Sarah, hey, Michael, any Cards and Yankees rumors to keep up on? Great work. We just talked about the Yankees and Mitch Keller. They are looking for some controllable starting pitchers. They were connected to Joe Ryan before the All-Star break, Mitch Keller today. As far as the Cardinals go, they're still pretty much in the same boat they were before the All-Star break. I'm curious to see what decisions they make around their rotation. Do they add? Do they subtract? Do they move on from Helsley? Do they find a taker for Arenado? Those are some of the bigger questions. For me, the Cardinals still need to finish what the task was this season. Figure out what pieces are going to be there for the long term. To me, that means Sagassi's got to get more playing time. That means Arenado's got to be traded. You got to find somebody to take that deal one way or another. You have to free up at bats for those young players in there still. This is still a good team. Don't get me wrong. The Cardinals still have a chance at the wild card. And if this young team can somehow win and get through August and September and get one of those wild card spots, that'd be a great sign for the future there for the Cardinals. But I wouldn't necessarily be worried about getting into the postseason this year. It's all about the future this year for the Cardinals. They said this was a one-year retooling period before the season began. So stick to it. Don't just say, hey, we're a couple of games out of the wild card. We think we have a chance to get in. We'll see what happens once we get to October if we do get in. Don't change plans now. This is kind of the plan. You expected to be in this position. You didn't think you were bottoming out. You thought you'd be just outside of playoff positioning. And then when the season was over, you would see which pieces you have that fit long term. And then you'd add in the offseason. Stick to that plan if you're the St. Louis Cardinals. Heel, I'm so confused why trading Dane Dunning. He was a very good pitcher to have, but hopefully to make room for us to get someone at the deadline. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Dane Dunning. As far as Rangers fans go, nobody's missing Dane Dunning more than me right now, besides maybe Dane Dunning himself and his family. But, I just was really a big fan of Dane Dunning when we acquired him for Lance Lynn. I was just, over the moon when we got him because I remember his prospect days back with the Nationals and with the White Sox. I thought he'd be a great, strikeout artist. He didn't really turn into that at the major league level, which is part of the reason why the Rangers didn't see him as a long-term piece in that starting rotation. In that 23 season, he was their most consistent starting pitcher the year they won the World Series. And yet, they didn't really allow him a chance to, duplicate that success. They were quick to let him out of the rotation in the postseason. Didn't even give him really a start in the postseason. Didn't give him a chance because they wanted some guys with stuff, and they didn't believe Dane Dunning's stuff held up. I hope he gets another lease on life there in Atlanta. Maybe find something, a pitching coach and pitching coordinators anyway that believe in him. Not saying that Mike Maddox and Bruce Bochy are bad guys. I'm just saying they value different things. And I still think there's a place in baseball for a pitcher like Dane Dunning. And Atlanta is absolutely desperate for starting pitching right now. They called up a guy, Didier Fuentes, who absolutely got rocked in his debut. He should not have been on the Major League roster, but that's how desperate they are for starting pitching. Bryce Elder has an ERA at around 6 right now, and he's throwing 15 starts so far this season. They need starting pitching. Right now, Chris Sale's still out. Dane Dunning immediately fills in that spot in the rotation to allow their young guys to still develop in the minor leagues without having to call them up on an emergency basis. No reason to start their clock or ruin their confidence by having them get shelled way before they get ready for the promotion to the big leagues. All right, Anthony, Michael, when is the last time you can remember a team trading either 2 hitters or 2 starters in one massive trade? Good question. 2 starters or 2 hitters? The hitters feels like it's happened quite a bit, but not like 2 major pieces. You remember the Juan Soto trade? Josh Bell was a part of that deal, so I could probably say that was probably the biggest names we've seen moved in the same deal. Trying to remember the Trey Turner, Max Scherzer deals with the Dodgers. I can't remember if that was the same year or if they were separate years, but those would be the next ones that I remember there. Ethan, Marcell Ozuna to Texas is close. They just got $1.5 million closer to a deal. I just don't think Ozuna does anything that elevates the roster right now. I think, having Rowdy Tellez coming up, complements the left-handed side of first base. Justin Foskey's going to handle the right-handed at-bat duties until Jake Burger gets back. Once Burger gets back, he's still going to take over the left-handed duties at first base. We'll see what happens on the right-handed, when you need a right-handed hitter, Burger's right-handed duties. They need a left-handed hitter in that spot. As far as DH goes, Jock Peterson is still the left-handed complement at DH. If you're willing to have 2 DHs only on your roster, then you make the move for Marcell Ozuna. But I just don't think the Rangers are going to do that. I think they're going to look for somebody who can still play the field in some degree, whether that's a guy who's on the last legs in the field or whether that's somebody who's got multiple years left in the field. But I don't think they'll go for a DH only type of player. Welcome in, Mr. AC Milan. John, appreciate you guys joining us once again. If you guys haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so. What is a fair trade for the Jays to get Finnegan from the Nats? Very small package. Finnegan doesn't have a huge price. Also, do you think a few weeks it'll be a seller's market or a buyer's market? I guarantee you the sellers are going to make out like kids in a candy store this trade deadline. There are so many buyers at this market, but nobody's really willing to go all in here at the deadline. As far as sellers are. So the pieces on the market are not going to be plentiful. You're basically talking about maybe one decent catcher that might be available, some rental options in the starting staff, couple of controllable guys, but nobody that's high quality, dominant level ace, Tarek Skubal type of starter. Nobody really fits that bill this year. There's no dynamic hitter that's available. No Kyle Tucker, no Alex Bregman. Rafi Devers has already been traded. Maybe the Atlanta Braves shake up their roster, but those would be kind of the names that I'm still waiting on the periphery here. If the Atlanta Braves decide to get a little frisky with their roster, maybe they could do something with those guys. But I still lean towards, 99 times out of 100, they still lean towards keeping those guys. But I don't think the chances are 0 that they end up keeping those guys. So that they end up moving those guys anyways. But we'll see. John, I'm late. Do you feel the Rangers are sellers or buyers? They already are going to be buyers. They're freeing up money here by moving Dane Dunning to add a bullpen arm. They're looking for a power arm, somebody who gets a lot of strikeouts. Last year, they had a lot of strikeouts, but had a lot of walks as a result. That's the one thing Bruce Bochy and Mike Maddox couldn't stand. So they retooled their bullpen to get guys who don't give up walks very often. And that bullpen has been very good. In the top 3 of baseball all season long. They do need some help in the 9th inning. And that bullpen was extremely overused at the very end of the first half. The break here came just at the right time for that bullpen to get rested and so forth. But they still need one more arm back there, and they are looking for a closer type. Heel, did I read the front office article? And the Rangers are rumored to be contacted on Osuna and Josh Bell. I'll put it this way. Josh Bell doesn't move the needle for me. I think that would be a low-cost move, kind of that same vein of a JD Martinez, Rowdy Tellez. It's a low-cost move. If they do make it, it's not going to be a big move one way or the other. Osuna, I don't think he does enough for this team for him to be brought in, so I very much doubt they bring him in. Especially when you're going to have to put him and Jock Peterson on the same roster. Peterson will be back probably the second week or first or second week of August on the big league roster, and hopefully he's back to being the Jock Peterson of last year than what we saw this first half. Anthony, I was looking up Marlins trade rumors in one of the articles that they wrote on the Blockbuster, sending Sandy to the Mariners for Henry Ford, Lazaro Montez. That's not going to happen. Montez alone would be way too expensive for Sandy Alcantara. The Braves trading for Dunning. I think they are keeping Olsen and Riley. I agree, but I wouldn't say that the chances are zero that they don't move them. I think if the Braves want to do something interesting here at the deadline, say they want to shake up their roster, increase the ability to sign free agents, not that they're usually the team that likes to do that kind of thing. They do what the Rangers have done and try to look for bargains on the periphery, guys that are just past their prime that still might have something left in the tank. That's what we saw from the 2012 to 2016 Rangers teams. I think that's where the Atlanta Braves are at right now. But they need some money to kind of be able to do those things. And the only guys that they might have the ability to trade and be able to get a really nice return and still have the financial flexibility afterward is those players. Now, like I said, I'm keeping an eye on them. I don't think they'll move, but if there's any indication that they'd be willing to talk about it, I'd be all over that thing, because those players, those contracts, I think are very manageable. Certainly Austin Riley, a great deal. 7 years left of control after this season in the 20s. That price is very, very low compared to what market value would be for those players right now. Anthony, I agree with you that the trade is unrealistic, but Henry Ford, Johnny, and Tyler, is that still too much? Yeah, it's still way too much. Alcantara's value is around 12 right now. I haven't even checked on the market yet today, just to see if they've decreased it even more. But his market, I mean, you're not getting anybody in the top 100. That's for sure. You're probably not getting a prospect in the top 200. I would say you're probably talking about maybe a couple of A-ball, productive players that haven't quite hit the AA, test yet. That are still having great season, but haven't really faced any stiff competition yet. Unproven prospects, if you will. And I think that's probably your best case scenario in a trade for Sandy Alcantara at this point. Which means, if I'm the Miami Marlins, I trade everything else except Sandy Alcantara and hope he figures it out in the second half. Would Tyler and Henry still be too much? Yeah. I think Henry Ford by himself would still be too much. All right, let's get into some trade talk, and let me pull up my screen for you guys. This was the trade we were just talking about, Rangers trading away Dane Dunning. Again, this is about saving money here for the Rangers. This saves them around $1 to $1.5 million here at the deadline. I think it's closer to $1 though, if I remember correctly. But either way, this gives them another million that they can put towards another elite arm at the back end of their bullpen, another bench bat, a third baseman who can take over for Josh Young. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Kyle Gibson, another news item there. He did announce his retirement today. A great career. One of my favorite players from the Minnesota Twins when they were having difficulty developing starting pitching. Kyle Gibson was seen as one of those late bloomers for them. Struggled in his first few years there, thought he was going to be the next great thing, and never really turned into that, but eventually turned into a nice, solid pro. Went to Texas and really found himself, and then bounced around the last couple of years to kind of finally end up in retirement. Hats off to a nice career there for Kyle Gibson, who stuck with it and was able to find his groove in Major League Baseball after initially getting some rough outings anyway with the Minnesota Twins early on in his career. The Yankees, as I mentioned, have talked about a trade for Mitch Keller. I'm not sure how far down the road those kind of talks are yet. It still seems very early. We're just starting to get rumors about Mitch Keller and the Yankees specifically being connected to him. We've heard for, the last year that the Yankees would have interest in him if he became available, but we'll see how quickly a deal comes together if Keller does get moved. Astros are looking to get a left-handed second baseman. Their main target is Brendan Donovan. I'm not sure how likely that's going to be because I don't think Brendan Donovan moves at all. If you're looking for an out-of-the-box surprise candidate to move, that would certainly be a surprise to me. Would I say Brendan Donovan would never move from the Cardinals? No. I think there's a world in which he would be traded. I just think this year is not the year. Now, like I said, this is a year about figuring out what pieces you have for the long term. To me, Donovan is still a prime piece to be part of the future there of the Cardinals. I don't think they're looking to move him. Now, as far as Arenado goes, we're already looking in the rearview mirror at that one. That one needs to go ahead and move on. But as far as, Jace, to answer your question there, welcome in, by the way. Cardinals buy or sell. They are looking to both buy and sell here at the deadline. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they could look to move on from Arenado, capitalize on the value of Helsley, and still add a right-handed hitter or a starting pitcher. I don't think that they're mutually exclusive because I think they might try to capitalize on the value of those two pieces, get some at bats for their young guys, give another guy an opportunity in the bullpen, and then still help out their starting staff, which is going to need help next year anyway. If they can do it for a controllable piece, that'd probably be the best way they go. Anthony, can you do a trade with Eduardo Cabrera and Ronnie Enriquez going to the New York Mets? The Mets are looking for an ace. I don't think Cabrera really fits that category for me. We can go ahead and do that trade here in just a moment. But be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Posted a couple of videos today about the trade deadline. Please go back and when you're done watching the live, go ahead and check that one out. Send us your comments about what trades you guys would like to see here at the deadline. And we'll have another live tomorrow night where we're certainly going to get into a lot of your comments. So make sure, on those other videos that I've already got posted, send us your trade ideas. What would you do here at the deadline? So send us those ideas, and then in tomorrow's show, we're going to go through quite a few of those tomorrow. Anthony, that's what confuses me. The Cardinals are in that weird middle ground. They're not good enough to be a playoff team, but they're not bad enough to be a top 3 draft team. Well, that's kind of where we thought they would be, though, Anthony. They're in that weird middle ground, and that's where you never want to be. But the Cardinals basically said that's where we will be by the end of the year. Remember, this was a year about figuring out their future, about which assets were going to be sticking around. They basically told everybody it's going to be a retooling year. They were very careful not to call it a rebuild, which means they're going to be right back in it next year. At least that was the plan entering the season. I don't see any reason to change that plan right now. I understand they had a nice first half. They kind of came into the All-Star break, a little bit lurchy, I guess is the best way to describe it. But that does not mean that you immediately try to, stabilize the ship and try to make it into the postseason and catch lightning in a bottle like the D-backs did in 23 to try to get to a World Series. That does not mean change your course of the season. I think this means that you need to stick to the plan and then head into free agency after the season, fill a couple of holes, and try to push to win the division, maybe even the World Series next season. This year, though, is all about figuring out which pieces are there for the long term. All right, House of Houston reports that the Astros should consider trading Bryce Matthews. Will they? I don't know. Is that enough to get Lowe or Donovan? I think it'd be more than enough for Lowe. Donovan, I don't think it'd be enough, but I don't think Houston would move Bryce Matthews anyway. I think they'd move other pieces instead. I think Bryce Matthews is a piece that's going to be too close to the majors for the Astros to consider moving, unless it's for a dynamic piece. I suppose Donovan would kind of fit that description for me, but I think they'd be looking even bigger game hunting if they trade Bryce Matthews. Anthony, but Michael, isn't that the bad thing for teams that are trying to rebuild, like the Cardinals, Marlins, and Pirates being stuck in the middle ground? Yes, but the Cardinals have too many good pieces already, and their prospect system still has J.J. Weatherholt, Matthews, and then they just got the pitcher in the draft as well. The Cardinals are going to be set for years to come. I don't think you have to worry about their future because their pipeline is still good to go. Pirates, meanwhile, don't have the offensive talent to really supplement this staff right now. And so that's where the questions become around Paul Skeens. Are they ever going to get enough offense around him? Same thing with Keller, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This could be a crazy deadline. I think there's a possibility that it could be. However unlikely that might be. I do think there's an opportunity for some really out-of-the-box deals. I would say that Keller getting moved would certainly be out of the box or out of the norm for what this deadline was expected to be. Joe Ryan would be kind of in that same category as well. Actually, I have a better trade, Michael Sandy and Ronnie Enriquez to the Mets for... Sandy would be kind of the name piece. I still wouldn't really trade anything of huge value, but if you're looking for multiple, 10 to 15, or the number 10 to 15 prospects in the Mets organization, get a couple of bats out of that group, that would make some sense, I suppose. Let's do it. Why not? Can you do a trade with some lefty second baseman with Bryce Matthews as the main piece? We can go ahead and do some trades here. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys. So, baseball trade values, we're going to go over to their simulator. I'm going to get a drink first. All right, let's do some trades here. We'll go ahead and start with Anthony's trade, and then we'll do yours, Heel. If you guys have a trade you'd like us to do, let us know in the comments section. The team, maybe a player that you want to see moved, let us know in the comments section. We'll even do a Yankees one with Keller here in just a moment. All right, so you're saying to the Mets, we're going to go with the Marlins in-division trade for Alcantara, whose value is in the tank right now, but it's still an ace that would kind of be the big splashy name. His value dropped again, man. That's what, 3 straight days his value has dropped on this site? Although it looks like it's stabilizing. It dropped from around 17.8 and down to 12, now down to 11.5. All right, so Henriquez, I think that's a good middle relief option for the Mets as well. Can he handle New York is a bigger question. Okay, so where are we going here? So we got 18.2. You're going to have to bowl over the Marlins to trade low on Alcantara. So probably, kind of pin here about 23 value is what it would take to get this deal done. So you're not getting any of these top bats here. But I think if you're the Marlins, Clifford could be the centerpiece of this deal. I would demand Gilbert. Baez probably would be another piece I would look for. And then you go a little bit cheaper here. A Boston Barrow, I think, could be a nice piece. How close are we there? Hey, we were looking for 23. We got to 23. Gilbert, an outfielder to go with Stowers. I think that would be a good one. And then Barrow and Baez to kind of round out the deal. Henriquez has kind of rehabbed his value very nicely there with the Marlins, but I don't see him ever becoming an elite, eighth inning pitcher. Kind of a setup guy or as a closer. But he could give you some length in the middle because he was brought up as a starting pitcher with the Rangers years ago. Finally found his groove there with the Marlins. Would I do this if I'm the Mets? Honestly, I would target other starting pitchers first. But this deal here would be close. Let's validate it. It's probably going to say moderate overpay. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and post it anyway. Let's go ahead and go back to the trade simulator. You want to look for a left-handed hitting second baseman. All right, so let's see what we can do. Second base. Donovan's at the top of the heap here as far as average. I think Lau will probably be the best one that you could get here at the deadline. He's having a really nice year. And I think recently he's played really well as well, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Last 15 games of freaking ads. Last 15 games a 302 average. Last 30 games a 330 average. Looks like he's cooling off a little bit. The power numbers are still there. Looks like he struggled in the series in Minnesota. Let's say they go for Brendan Lau. What's his price from the Tampa Bay Rays? I think the Rays are a legitimate selling team this year. I think they realize the writing is on the wall that the teams behind them will be passing them. So the Astros were the team that we were doing this with, right? Remember they had the trade conversations around Paredes last year? They were the runner-up in those Paredes conversations. So they can kind of go right back to those discussions. Majors. His value is only a 5.8. You're not going to have to include Bryce in this one. He's got 1 year left, I think, after this year as well. 5.8. So what would you have to give up to make it worth it for the Rays? This is where you could get kind of interesting here. Let's start on page 2. Anderson Brito. Baez. And Mayer, maybe? Or Sullivan. Let's put another outfield bat in there. If I'm the Rays, do I do this? Probably not. If I'm the Astros, I do this all day long. With how the Tampa Bay Rays operate, do you think they trade Junior during the trade deadline? No, they don't trade him at the deadline, no. Let's see here. John, the Rangers are near bottom statistically regarding hitting, 24th to be exact in hitting. With Simeon and Seager not hitting their worth, the Rangers need to emphasize on better hitters. Bregman. You're saying during the offseason? Like, I'm not against that at all, John. Honestly, I think the Rangers are going to make a splash in the offseason. They'll have a lot of money coming off the books. The question is about Jock Peterson, if they can find a taker for that money, or if they can get him to perform in the second half. By some miracle, get him to opt out of the deal. That would give them some real financial flexibility here, going into next year. But even if they don't, they'll have reset their, repeater tax penalties, those kinds of things. And then they can go and add here in free agency next year. I do think they will look to add a starting pitcher. And I do think they'll try to add a elite closer type option if they can in the offseason. If they don't add one here at the deadline, I do think they'll try to get one, though. And then the other thing that I think they'll try to do is another bat. Because if Josh Young doesn't somehow figure things out here before the deadline, or they don't add a third baseman, and Josh Young just doesn't figure out in the second half, they're going to have to do something over there at third base. And I think it would come down to the Red Sox, probably the Blue Jays. Cubs, I think, would have some interest in Bregman as well. Houston, I'm sure, would kick the tires on it. Mets, I'm sure, would be in there. But I think the Rangers would be one of the first teams in there for Bregman. Kyle Tucker, I think, would be another great long-term piece as well. If they did sign him in the offseason, and then Adolis Garcia becomes the expendable piece, maybe you trade him in the offseason. But there's no way they're trading him during the year. But let's go ahead and clear this trade out and, kind of keep this trade talks going. If the Astros really wanted a lefty second baseman and get desperate, there's Otto Lopez from the Marlins, I suppose. I agree with you that the value is tanking because he isn't performing, but what is the odd thing I hear people like Jim Bowden and John Hammond? I'm guessing you're meaning John Heyman, say based on their connections. Well, I know Alcantara's name is going to continually be thrown out there. And with as many teams that are needing starting pitching, somebody's going to say, hey, I know how to fix him in somebody's front office, and somebody's going to overpay for him. The question is, can they get him to perform like he used to? That's a tough ask. They're saying the contenders don't care how he's performing for the All-Star break. They feel that they can rehab him and have him be playoff ready by the beginning of September. Again, that's a tall task. The Dodgers are the only one, to me, that have a legitimate case of saying they have the ability to do that. Everybody else in that conversation, the Cubs, the Mets, pretty much anybody in need of a starting pitcher, doesn't fit that description to me. The Dodgers have shown a track record of getting pitchers to get to where they need to be and perform at their top level. And I just don't see another team with this same track record having similar success with similar types of issues with pitchers. Anthony, that's low. Anthony, I'll give you credit for having the most even ask the Caminero question, maybe in 7 years, though. Caminero question, how soon, if they wanted to move him? It's assuming they don't get the extension, etc., like they try to do with all their young guys. I'd probably say with 3 years left, the conversation really becomes serious if the Rays do what they always do and try to capitalize on the value of their guys. Rays should go after Jacob Wilson of the A's. I would love him, but there's no way the A's are moving him. This isn't MLB The Show. I hear you there, Hill. Remember, just because you have the interest in a trade, the value is there for the trade, doesn't mean that the trade is ever going to happen in real life because, again, you're giving up the future of Jacob Wilson, who, by the way, in his rookie year, started for the American League in the All-Star game over the likes of a Bobby Witt, over the likes of a Corey Seager. Understandably, it's a down year, but it's still Corey freaking Seager. All the other great shortstops on the American League, he beat out every single one of them to win the award, to play in the All-Star game and be the starting shortstop there. He looks like a future. I'm not sure if he's a future MVP candidate, but he's going to be the A's MVP, that's for sure. Mike with Edward, I understand he has a middle rotation guy, and teams are not going to give up elite prospects. But doesn't the 4 years of control increase his value for the team that's contending? Absolutely. I'm not saying that the teams aren't going to give up elite prospects for Cabrera. I'm just saying teams are going to target aces first and then go for middle rotation guys second, and still may give up elite prospects for them, especially with the control that you're mentioning there. But they're going to go aces first, and especially with teams like the Mets, like the Cubs, they have middle of the rotation guys already. If they can't get the top of the rotation guy, maybe they settle for the consolation prize, if you will, of the middle rotation guy. But they're looking for aces first here at the deadline. Let's go ahead and do that Yankees trade with the Pirates we were just mentioning, with the Yankees rumors around Mitch Keller today. They are looking for some starting pitching, controllable starting pitching, especially with the issues that they have right now. Keller, 3 years left after this deal. Now remember, Pirates are going to need some offense in this deal. So let's keep that in mind when we're doing this trade. We're looking at offense. Lombard, I think, would be a little too much. I don't think Ben Rice really fits the timetable, so you're going to skip that one. Spencer Jones probably is the first piece. I think LaGrange as a pitching guy would be a nice option coming back as kind of your pitching complementary piece. Now let's just look at the trade with just those two pieces. 15 to 34, you're going to need about another 22-ish to get this trade done. So you're going to have to give up a nice piece offensively or on the pitching side. Ben Rice is the only one that really fits. You could go Rafi Flores. Nobody else here really fits either. Even with Flores in there, you're still 12 away. That's tough to see a deal coming together. What else could the Pirates do? Brian Hayes has what, -12? 5 years left on his deal. Do 2-for-1 shopping here, get your third baseman and your controllable starter. And it's not a bad contract, though, for the Pirates. Because remember, they can't really afford much. Even with the negative value on the deal, it's still not a bad deal for the Pirates to have as a negative asset. Now, Brian Reynolds, that's a contract I think they would love to move. Do the Dodgers make sense for Edward because they already have an ace on their staff? To me, the Dodgers are looking big game hunting only. They're looking for, franchise altering type moves here. They're not looking to kind of patchwork their rotation. They aren't looking for a middle relief option here to kind of make things work at the deadline. They're looking for game changing pieces. They're looking for aces. They're looking for, Jarren Duran of the Red Sox to, dynamically take over in their outfield. They're looking for Sandy Alcantara to kind of really put the linchpin in that starting staff. They aren't looking for middle relievers. Now, that doesn't mean that those guys don't have value. It's just that the Dodgers have so many guys that are already aces on the staff that if they did make the trade for Cabrera with a full staff, which, yes, they do have the injuries to worry about. When do they ever have a full staff? We have to understand that as well. But when exactly would Cabrera draw the ball? As the fifth starter in that rotation? As the eighth starter when healthy? Maybe he takes over for Kershaw in the rotation when he's gone. But still, they have so many, what I would consider aces on their staff. Cabrera doesn't really fit in that mix. I think he's going to be a great fit for teams like the St. Louis Cardinals looking for some controllable pitching. Teams like the Detroit Tigers could have been a deal, but I think they've got a lot of pitching nowadays. If they didn't have so many good bounce back seasons from guys like Casey Mize, those types of pieces, I think they would have been a great fit for him. But the Red Sox are looking for some controllable pitching as well. Those are the types of players, or those are the types of teams I would be talking to first about Cabrera. Texan USMC 8089, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. I think the Astros will be looking for a second baseman or an outfielder. I think they'll be looking for an outfielder primarily, but a utility player overall, I think would be best case scenario for them. We're talking maybe Willie Castro, Luis Rengifo anyway, that type of player. I think is exactly what the Astros should be looking for at this deadline, and I think that's where they'll ultimately get as well. Some teams may ask the Yankees for a lot. They will, or any big market team for that matter. True, in the Triple H, we got to do what's best for business. Love that. One of my favorite, if not my favorite wrestler of all time. He is right there. Yeah, I think he is my favorite wrestler. Is Brent Rooker of the A's off limits too? I wouldn't say he's completely off limits, but it's highly unlikely that he moves. I kind of classify him in that Matt Olson, Austin Riley category for all intents and purposes, unless there's some type of seismic sea change with those teams. Those guys are pretty much staying put. But it's always worth knocking on the door and at least seeing if there is some wiggle room there with those types of players. San Diego would make sense. For Edward, I would absolutely agree with that one. I think San Diego would be a great fit for Cabrera. Rooker not going anywhere, true. They just extended him. I don't think the extension too much is the reason why. I think it's just that Rooker is one of, having a great season. There's offense is the reason why they're having success. They do need pitching. Rooker would be a great piece for them to do that. And I think there's a trade for Rooker down the line. But I'm just not sure this year is the year you do that. I just think this team is still too young in its, swing here with Butler, Soderstrom, Kurtz, Wilson, Muncy. They've got a nice young core coming. Rooker doesn't figure to be the long-term piece in that core, and so he could be the piece that brings you some starting pitching, when they do end up getting to Vegas. All right, let's try to wrap up this deal here. I just don't see a deal really coming together unless it turns into a 3-team deal where somebody takes some of the starting pitching here. So let's clear out this trade. Let's do another trade here. With the Rangers making the deal of Dane Dunning and sending him to Atlanta, they free up a little bit of money here. This tells me Texas, we already knew they were going to be buyers. The market didn't believe them. Everybody on planet Earth thought they were going to be selling here, 3-4 weeks ago? They aren't selling. Adolis Garcia is staying. They're looking for an elite closer. We talked a lot about Johan Duran. We talked a little bit about Helsley. Let's talk a little bit about Emmanuel Clase. Not that I think the Rangers necessarily will be the team that ponies up the price for him, but what would it look like? That's one of the closers we really haven't looked at too closely yet here at the deadline, but I think there's a legitimate case to be made for the Guardians to move on from Clase. And the Rangers are, of course, familiar with him from their time with him years ago. Of course, that was under a different GM at the time. But if you did make the trade for Clase, you got 3 years left after this season. It cost $35 to bring him in. That's a hefty sum. All right. Did they move Rosario's value? Oh, I'm in the majors. Huh? There we go. Okay. All right. So Rosario's still pretty much stuck in the mud because he's a top 100 guy. I'm still not trading Castillo. Latz and Cole Drake have had great seasons. Mitch Bratt is way higher value than where he's at on this board. He's going to be sent to AAA in the next week. Scarborough's having a great season so far. He's going to be sent, I believe, to AA. So the Rangers do have some good pitching coming. So where do you go if you're going for a Clase? Rosario, that kind of fits the description of what I was going to say Cardinals and Giants. It's the Guardians are going to ask for in return. So you do Rosario just to kind of see what a trade would look like. Say you throw in a Dreiling, they always need outfield. And then you throw in one of the productive pitchers. Say you throw in Cole Drake, since he has the most value. You're still a little short. I would probably skip this trade then if I'm the Rangers. Let's do a different one. Where else could we get an elite closer? Let's go back to the Twins. Let's just see if the value's changed on him today. 20.8, so it's around the same as what it was yesterday. I think it was 20.3 yesterday. I could be wrong on that one. But I think the Rangers just seem like the perfect team for Duran, but so do the Phillies, So do the Red Sox, so do the Tigers, so do the Cubs. You're going to have to overpay if you're going to bring him in. And you're not getting Byron Buxton. As much as I would love to have him, that's not happening. Joe Ryan, there is a world where they could go after a controllable starter like that. He does kind of fit what the Rangers are looking for, and he does kind of show he's already learning from Jacob deGrom. He mentioned that when he was talking with reporters when he was named to the All-Star game. When I think the Rangers were, they were. Who were the Twins facing in that final week? Was it Detroit? Anyway, Joe Ryan was being interviewed, and he mentioned that he picked up a couple of things from Jacob deGrom. So he would already fit in the clubhouse. If they were to do it, say they take back Correa and solve their issues at third base, money would be the issue this year, obviously. If they could trade back Jock Peterson in this deal, I doubt they would, but let's leave him. I don't want to do something that doesn't seem reasonable. So say that they send. Let's look at their the money on this one. Select new teams. Rangers and Twins. Start trade. So 13 is what you'd acquire if you traded for him right now. If they retained all of it, all $13 million this year, and ate the rest of it, the rest of the season, or the rest of the years after this, you're putting in. I think Bader would be a good player for the Rangers as well. They needed right-handed hitting outfielder, and then Duran. Okay. Send to Texas. Salary-wise, you're just fine. You could even do a Willie Castro to kind of help out your bench bats and do all your shopping in one place. And you'd be able to do it financially just fine. And that would be if they got them to eat all 13 that's left on Correa's deal. So going back to this site, Twins, let's say for argument's sake, they do 13.5 going to the Rangers. We're looking for major league pieces, expiring deals, Bader, Castro, something along those lines. So you're still looking 65 value. Rangers would have to give up quite a bit to get there. To me, the only way they could get this deal off the ground is if they put Walcott in this deal. That's too much. It's just too much. So you take out Ryan, you take out Correa. You still can afford all these pieces without the cash coming to you. So now you're at 27. That's a lot easier package to get to. Rosario still fits. I think Osuna would probably be the fit here to help out right now in their outfield mix. And then you're looking for what? Probably one more starting pitcher. Because they're going to need starters. Cole Drake could be the piece. We'll get into your comments here in just a second. Rosario, Osuna, and Drake for Duran, Bader, and Castro. Elite closer arm. I still think they would look for a strikeout pitcher. But this would pretty much conclude the Rangers buying, aside from that strikeout pitcher. I don't hate the trade. If I'm the Twins, do I do the deal? I get a successful Double-A pitcher who's about to be graduating to Triple-A Rosario, a top 100 guy, injured this year, will be healthy next year. And Ozuna goes into my outfield right now, not perceived as a long-term piece at all, but considered probably a stopgap for a few years. Might catch fire, good hit tool, gets on base, and he's available, which has been an issue over the last year or two for the Twins. I'd probably say yes to the deal if I'm the Twins, because you're getting a top 100 guy out of it. And then Drake, I think, is a probably top 200 prospect at this point. Validate it and post it. All right, let's catch up on a few of these comments. Michael, I think what people are forgetting is I think the A's, even though they're playing in a AAA stadium, they're getting funding by the casinos in Vegas like the Raiders are. I'll put it this way. The Raiders, the A's, yes, are going to be going to Vegas. They will have a completely different financial future going forward. They have time until they get there. They are still in a very hitter-friendly ballpark. So kind of take that in mind when you're looking at the hitters of the A's anyway. Kind of like how Coors Field was always seeing an advantage for the hitters. Same kind of thing there with the AAA ballpark. That being said, it still doesn't mean Rooker isn't having a great year. We saw great numbers from Rooker last year. Same thing on the road this year. Same thing at home. He's been a very good hitter. I'm just not sure the A's see the wisdom in moving him right now. I don't see that his value would go down at all between now and next year anyway. So why trade him when you could get the exact same trade package next year in return, and especially when you're not expected to win right now. You want to win when you hit the ground running in Vegas, and when you have Rooker at that point, then you cash him in for whatever trade chips you might be able to go for. If Rooker gets traded, I'll mail everyone kisses the chocolate. By the way, so don't get excited. True. That'd be pretty cool, though. Get a whole bunch of melted chocolate in the mail. It's too hot out there for chocolate, my guy. Anthony, so I think eventually they're going to be a big budget team because they're getting the funding from the casinos. Absolutely, I agree with you there. But as far as they're getting funding from just being in Vegas. Period. They're going to be making money. The ownership there, I think, will be a lot more amenable to spending money than they ever were while they were in the old Oakland Coliseum, if you will. And we'll see what moves they make. Texan, absolutely. Glad I could help you out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. It'll be live every single night around 9 o'clock, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live on trade deadline day all day long, bringing you all the latest updates. So make sure you guys join us here at the Upside. Anthony, Michael, I understand my Marlins just put Connor Norby on the IL anyway. Is it the 60-day reserved or the 20-day? Is his surgery serious enough to where he's going to miss the rest of the season? Honestly, I'm not sure. I haven't looked too much into Norby's injury, honestly. We can look up that one here shortly. Osuna should get moved, hopefully. I agree. I just don't think Bochy's ever going to give him the at-bats at the major league level. I think they were giving him an opportunity for a minute there when he first came up, just to see if he was going to be as good as he was in spring training. Obviously, as a new guy, the moment all those kinds of things got to him, he's going to need time, and I think in time he would have been just fine. But, Bochy's never going to sit around and wait for that to happen. So, I think that Osuna moving on to somewhere where he can be in the lineup every day. A team like the Pittsburgh Pirates, for instance, I think would be a great team. You trade Bednar, you trade Osuna, maybe add a piece or two from the Rangers, and there you got a deal. I think that would be something I could see the Rangers doing here at the deadline. Rangers are looking for strikeout artists, and that's one thing I don't think too many Rangers fans have been looking at. I wanted to look over here at StatCast and just kind of show the strikeout numbers. These are where guys rank really as far as strikeouts. And Duran isn't really in that group. But some of the arms that we might have been hoping might have been available, Mason Miller, Aroldis Chapman, Griffin Jacks from the Twins is available but does not have the closing experience. Felix Bautista's in that category. That's another closer I want to keep an eye on as well for the Rangers. Astros and Rangers should just do all their shopping from the Twins. Honestly, I think most of the teams in baseball could do their shopping with the Twins and get whatever they want. I think the Twins just have a bevy of really good pieces that just aren't working for the Twins and haven't been working for the last couple of years. And, they're looking to retool anyway, especially with their ownership in question, the financing being in question as well until the new owner is in place. We'll see what direction they decide to go at the deadline. But they do seem to have a really stable organization, and Derek Falvey at the top. Buxton, of course, wanting to stay the captain of the team. Pablo Lopez just seems like Mr. Twin right now. Every time I see him in an interview, he was actually in the booth while he was injured on the Twins broadcast. That team just looks, happy even with their record right now being what it is. That team just seems, you know, I'm originally from South Dakota, and Minnesota, the North in general, um, you just have this, day on the lake kind of a vibe because it is the land of 10,000 lakes, I suppose, because it's Minnesota. But they just seem to have this really nice calm about all those players, really. And, it really does seem to be an overriding emotion within that clubhouse. Maybe they could use a little bit more fire in there, I suppose, which is why you brought in Carlos Correa to begin with. Correa, of course, with the injuries and poor performance at times, hasn't exactly been able to live up to that contract as of yet. But, the Twins just have a lot of really good talent. And like I said, any team that ends up going there for their for whatever they need here at the deadline could get whatever they need. A strikeout pitcher, Griffin Jax. Starter, you got Joe Ryan if you're really willing to bowl them over. If you're looking for a closer, Duran. You want a bench utility player, Willie Castro. Third baseman, second baseman, Willie Castro. Outfielder, Harrison Bader. They still have a lot of talent coming as well. So, those are just a few of the names. They have Danny Colomb, not going to cost you a lot as well if you're looking for a middle relief arm. Twins could do pretty much anything here at the deadline. They have so many options on their at their disposal. He'll watch Michael. I'm going to go out to eat or use the bathroom, and while he's away, the Rangers get Tatis Jr. or something like that. I would love that. It's never going to happen, but I would absolutely love that one. JS, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again with Young, struggling, and demoted. Could the Rangers look to grab Suarez for the Diamondbacks? He hits well at Globe Life Field. There were rumors about Suarez to the Rangers about a month ago. Those have since died down. I think he goes to the Yankees. I think that one's just waiting to get done. With Jazz Chisholm going over to second base, Aaron Judge seems to prefer, or at least has let it be known to the front office through channels, that the guy he would like is Suarez from the Diamondbacks. And I think they're going to listen because he's exactly what they need. Not a long-term contract. Doesn't break the bank this year for them. He's got all the power that you'd want in the world. And while his average isn't exactly the highest in the world, and strikeouts are much higher than you would want them to be, he is still one of the most productive hitters power-wise this season. And that's really what the Yankees value most, is that hit tool, that power tool more than anything. And I think he'd be great in a Yankees uniform. Now, they would have a lot of swing and miss there, of course. That would be the issue there. And then how much are you willing to spend for him? What kind of prospects are you willing to give up? And what are you willing to give up off your Major League roster to the Diamondbacks to at least keep them in the wild card race? Anthony, as a baseball fan and Raiders fan too, who's the one power hitter in the AL from when you were a kid and a young adult that you're watching on television, or if they were from an old Ranger stadium? Like, we're talking like one of my favorite Rangers to ever watch play the game. When I was a kid, I loved watching Juan Gonzalez. I mean, it's tough the way that they ended up treating him, how things ended, that, he was kind of had a very rough relationship with the organization for a long, long, long period of time until recently. They finally retired his number like they should have years and decades ago. They should have mended fences a lot sooner. But I understand why Juan Gonzalez had such hard feelings. I mean, he was right to have those hard feelings. The Rangers did not treat him very well at the end. But to me, we talk about Pudge Rodriguez being Mr. Ranger, in the 90s. We talk, and, he was that as, the catcher there. But we forget that he bounced around for the last 10 years of his career, really. Juan Gonzalez bounced around primarily because the Rangers decided not to pay him. He was the catalyst in that lineup for me. He was the Josh Hamilton of those late 90s teams, early 2000s teams. And he was just such a great power hitter. The 100 RBIs before the All-Star break. I mean, we talk about RBIs these days, and we're kind of like, RBIs, schmarbis. Who cares about him? Juan Gonzalez certainly did, because guess what? He did whatever the question or whatever the situation asked for, which is exactly what the Rangers absolutely need to do right now. So he was the guy I really liked to watch as a Rangers fan. JS, could Young get more time to figure things out? Absolutely. They need to allow Young to do whatever he needs at the minor league level and just let him be patient and get back to being Josh Young. And he may never, ever get there. If he doesn't get there, you're going to have to find a long-term answer at third base this offseason. You certainly need to add one this season, I think, unless you're going to put Josh Smith over there. If you do, Jock Peterson comes back from the injured list and probably takes over most of the at-bats at DH. What do you do at first base? What do you do with the right-handed complement at DH? Sam Haggerty, Osuna. There is room for one bat in this lineup. I think they're going to look for a lefty bat. If Berger has issues producing offensively, or Peterson has issues when he comes back, obviously that's going to be after the deadline, but they're going to have to make some decisions before we get that far. Best power hitter as a Ranger I ever saw, maybe Josh Hamilton. I would say that he and Juan Gonzalez are right there, 1 and 2. Best power hitters we've ever seen. Nelson Cruz is kind of in that 3-4-5 category. A-Rod, of course, with the juice and whatnot, in that 3-4-5 category. In that best power hitter in Rangers history. Best power hitter when I was a kid was Barry Bonds, easily. No kidding. Pudge was the GOAT, or Pudge is the GOAT. I still think Pudge is great, but to me, he gets a lot of credit, and rightly so. We honor him as a Rangers fan quite extensively. Really, he's got Pudge's Pizza around the stadium as well. But to me, Juan Gonzalez never got his due the way that Pudge does now. And I would love to see that be corrected in the long term. Kind of like how the Cubs are finally doing right by Sammy Sosa here. Sammy does the apology. The Cubs immediately bring him back the same day, bring him into the clubhouse, shake everybody's hand. They're trying to mend fences with Sammy Sosa. I'd love to see them do something similar with Juan Gonzalez and try to ingratiate him a little bit more into the team. Maybe hire him as a special consultant. That way he's around the clubhouse more. That way the fans that of today's day and age can get a feel for who he was. I really enjoyed him as a player. Best power hitter, Astros, Jeff Bagwell. If not, then maybe Jordan. Jordan has prodigious power. I would say Bagwell's in that category, but health-wise, I think if Jordan had been healthy, that kind of thing, he might pass Bagwell, those kinds of players. Another power hitter for the Astros, Keminetti, but he wasn't there very long. Jeff Kent at second base. For a second baseman, he had great power, but not overall. I'd still probably go Jeff Bagwell with you, my friend. Michael, I was talking about old school baseball fan recently, and he said the closest catcher to the modern era to Johnny Bench was Pudge. Absolutely. That's what actually Johnny Bench says, is that Pudge was the closest to him out of all the catchers he's seen. For a while, Juan Gonzalez was the man. Absolutely. If I could get my hands on a Juan Gonzalez rookie card of any value, shoot, that might be one of my most prized cards that I get. He was probably my favorite Ranger, right there with Pudge. Would you consider Carlos Lee a power hitter? Kinda, but not on the level of the other guys we mentioned. All right, let's get back to the trade deadline discussion and kind of wrap up here in the next couple of minutes. Got to rest my voice up for a longer live we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to do a lot of trades, but let's go ahead and check over to X first and see if anything is happening this evening. It's been kind of a newsy day for trades. There's the trade that Baseball Trade Values just put out on Twitter. Dunning in exchange for Ruiz and cash considerations accepted by the model. Again, this is about them fixing financial issues on the roster for the Rangers, giving them a little bit more flexibility to add here at the deadline. They knew they were going to have to DFA somebody off this roster once John Gray came back. The update for that is John Gray is expected to come back after his next rehab start. So they're whatever they put him at as a short-term starter, throwing a few innings, 3, 4, 5 innings, something like that, or if they put him in the bullpen, John Gray will be back on the Rangers' active roster inside of the next week or two. So he is going to be coming back. Rowdy Tellez will be on the roster tomorrow. So they need to get some roster flexibility here, and they do by trading away Diaz and saving a little bit of money in the process. Michael, I was asking you power hitter from another team. To me, the other team I watched was the Atlanta Braves, when I was a kid. Andres Galarraga, the Big Cat, was one of my favorite players of the Braves. Chipper Jones was probably my favorite player on the team, along with Javi Lopez. And then, of course, you got the big three, the pitchers. Maddox, for my money, Maddox has the ability to pitch itself, locate and spot up, and know what to do as far as a pitcher. Nobody was better. You can talk about the heat from Randy Johnson, the height, the intimidating presence of a Randy Johnson. He's in the top 5 pitchers that ever, of all time, performance, everything. But to me, no one was more cerebral. No one was able to dot it up better than Greg Maddux. The only reason he didn't have a better career than what he did is because of the way he was able to pinpoint that ball during the season didn't have that same effect in October. And the reason being is because the ball got a little bit more slick. Go to colder temperatures, the ball you can't pinpoint that ball a little bit more. So I think if he had been playing in a dome, Greg Maddux we'd be talking about as one of the greatest pitchers we've ever seen in postseason history. We could say that about a lot of pitchers out there, but that their numbers would be better if they were playing in a dome. But I think he's the one guy that I would say is everybody says Greg Maddux was fantastic. Greg Maddux, they refer to a game, throwing a complete game as a starting pitcher in less than 100 pitches at Maddux. Well, I mean, again, just the ability to locate, the ability to know how to sequence his pitches, set traps, not even just in the same game, but months in advance. Throw something just, hang something just to make the batter think about it the next time they're up there, because that the home run that they're about to hit off you doesn't cost you that much in that game. But later on, once you get to October, hey, he might hang that fastball, he might hang that slider to me right at the top of the zone, and I'm going to try to club it out of the ballpark like he did the last time. Well, now he's got him set up and might be able to throw another one right past him. Pedro Martinez, another fun one to watch as well. But I'd say Maddux, the ability to pitch, not necessarily throw 100, but the ability to spot it up. I don't think anybody really understands just how good he was at that. I think me even talking about it here really undersells how good he was at that ability. And, I really invite you guys to go back and watch some of his games. They were chef's kiss fantastic. But Javi Lopez was another great player on that Braves team I really enjoyed watching. I didn't really get to watch much of Kirby Puckett. He was one of my dad's favorite players because he was a Twins fan. Losing the eye or vision, I can't remember the story, but he was vision in one eye or lost an eye or something like that, and he was still a good hitter. Another one that kind of comes to mind. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll update one last thing here. Doesn't look like anything's happening there. Head over here. Recent stories. Nothing else there. Oh, we could do the one last trade. The rumor that was made today about the Red Sox looking for a first baseman in Yandy Diaz. Let's do the Rays and Red Sox. And then if you guys have one more trade you want me to do, go ahead and post the team in the comments right now. And then the ones of you that I don't do the trade for, after the video is over, go to one of the shorts that I put out there today and comment the trade you want us to do in our live tomorrow. We're going to try to do many, many, many trades tomorrow. So send us your trades if we don't do your trade tonight in there. If you think of one later on tomorrow in the afternoon, let us know that as well. We'll go ahead and try to get to as many of them as we can. But the Rays and Red Sox, that was the rumor anyway. Yandy Diaz going to the Red Sox. What would a trade look like? Let's see here. We're looking for majors. We're looking first base. Diaz, 5.6. It's not going to cost a lot here for the Red Sox to be able to do something here. So let's see. What would it cost? 5.6. Let's see. I think all those names are out of touch here. So you could go 20-year-old starting pitcher Paez, not sure how to pronounce it. You could get back another first base piece in Justin Gonzalez. That's an interesting one. I think they probably skip though. You could do another 18-year-old outfielder. 19-year-old shortstop. How close are you then? I think that deal would get done. That trade would be based off of the rumors they are interested in Yandy Diaz. You give up 3 guys at single A or lower and be able to get that deal done. Kingston, welcome in. Pirates, Merrill Kelly to the Padres. Anthony. Let's see here. Kingston, Reynolds, and Bednar to the Phillies. Let's go ahead and do a Phillies trade. We haven't done one of those in a while. But Kingston, welcome in. If you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Those thumbs up at the bottom of your video go a long way to helping us out during our live. So really do appreciate it if you wouldn't mind doing that. So Phillies and Pirates. I think this could be a natural fit between the two teams. I still think they'll go a little bit bigger game hunting for a closer. As far as Bednar versus like a Duran or a Clase or a Bautista or something along those lines. We're looking majors first. Bednar at a 6. to the Phillies, and Reynolds. Hey, negative 44. Okay. So you're the Phillies. You have negative contracts of your own. Is this where you offload Nick Castellanos? No. Taijuan Walker? Possibly. Say you throw Taijuan Walker in this deal. That'd be kind of interesting. I just think that Reynolds deal is just so immovable. And I can't remember if he has a no trade or not, but either way, negative 44 is a lot to overcome. And I think they'd rather go with Justin Crawford in their outfield or another veteran that doesn't cost nearly what this does for Brian Reynolds. So you take out Reynolds. If we did Bednar to the Phillies, I think that becomes a lot more feasible, Kingston. Maybe a Dennis Santana as well to help out in that bullpen. So instead of going for Reynolds, you go Santana and Bednar to double up on relievers. Then we go back over to the Phillies. What could it look like in return? Or Bryce Harper to the Pirates? That's not going to happen. All right, so if we did both of those, we're looking 11.8. I think Burkholder could be one of your pieces. Abel, I would love to have if I'm the Pirates, but I think they need offense first more than anything else. So, Mendez, Burkholder, and then one more decent piece, Nori. There's your trade. You get Bednar, Santana, maybe get one more lotto pick, go all the way down to the bottom of their farm system. Get another, I don't know, is there a 17, 18-year-old kid in here somewhere? $19-year-old starting pitcher, 19-year-old second baseman. There you go. Validate it. Minor overpay. True. But you're getting two pieces here, so not bad. Thank you, Texan, for subscribing. Really do appreciate it. You'll be watching tomorrow. Absolutely. Really do encourage you guys to join us. We're going to be live, like I said, around 9 o'clock every evening during the week. And then on the weekends, we'll probably do it a little bit earlier in the day. On Sundays, we're going to try to do a little bit longer of a live in the afternoon. Wednesday, trying to think. Wednesday next week, we'll do one in the afternoon like we did yesterday. And then do another one in the evening. And then on trade deadline day, we'll be live all day long. Sabathia said a lot of people can throw, but not many can pitch. Absolutely. O'Neal Cruz to the Padres. O'Neal Cruz ain't going anywhere. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys so much for having fun with me tonight and talking some baseball. Really do encourage you guys to hit that like button, subscribe. Join us here at the Upside. Follow us on X at UpsideAscend if you want to get notified. If for some reason YouTube doesn't notify you, which sometimes if you don't, say you subscribe to a bunch of different channels on YouTube, they only let 3 notifications go through a day, is what I've heard from a few people that do follow me. So even when they have their alerts on for my channel, go ahead and follow us over on X. We do post whenever we go live here. That's what I'm doing for those first couple minutes of our live, is sharing it out there on X, sharing it on Facebook as well. So you guys can follow us there at UpsideSN on X and at Upside Sports Network on Facebook. You can check out our page there. Jeffrey, welcome in. Quan to the Dodgers. We could do that trade tomorrow. Go ahead and post those trade ideas on the short videos that we put out today. That way I can kind of make a list of them and try to get to those trade ideas tomorrow. So again, go to our page, hit that subscribe button. Go to our page anyway. Check out the 2 short videos we posted. There are 2 short 15-second videos anyway, kind of keeping you guys updated on the trade deadline. We'll have one video coming out about the Dane Dunning trade, how it frees up money for the Rangers ahead of the deadline tomorrow. And then you can check if you want to post more trade ideas on that one, you can. But we'll try to get everybody's trade ideas together, and then during our live tomorrow, we'll try to go through as many of them as we can, see which ones make sense for certain fans. For instance, Anthony, your one about Merrill Kelly to the Padres, we could do that one as well. But make sure you guys go over to our short, post it on there, and we really do appreciate you guys spending some time with us this evening, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Again, 9 o'clock, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great one, everybody.